glorified God who had given such authority to men. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. And as Jesus reclined at table in the house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard it, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I came not to call the righteous,
Please log on
but
to
sinners."
Wowie.com now, so your
Then
super
the
tracker
disciples
can
of John
log on
came to him,
and track
saying,
your progress.
"Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and they will fast.
Hey, it's Tony.
No
Welcome
one
to
puts a
phase
piece of
1, 2
unshrunk
cardio
cloth in an old
Remember,
garment,
we're starting out
for the
slow.
patch tears
Don't
away
worry.
from the garment,
You got
and a
water,
worse tear is made.
towel right in the corner. Don't forget your X.
Neither is
There, we
new
got Lisa
wine
back
put into
there.
old
Say hello,
wineskins.
Lisa. We got
If
Paul
it is,
back there.
the skins
All
burst
right,
and the
let's rock
wine
and
is
roll. Do some
spilled,
stretching.
and the
Take a
skins
deep
are
breath.
destroyed. But new
Exhale.
wine is
Pushing
put
down
into
your
fresh
chest.
wineskins,
Good.
and so
Starting out
both
slow.
are preserved.
Pull the right ear, the right shoulder.
While he was saying these things to them, behold, a ruler came in and knelt before him, saying,
Left shoulder.
"My
Open up
daughter
the
has
neck.
just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live."
Over the
And
right
Jesus
side.
rose and followed him with his disciples.
Good. Down again.
And behold, a woman who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12
Last
years
time.
came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment.
Over to the right. Keep
For she
breathing.
said to herself, "If I
Down
only
the
touch his
front.
garment, I will be made well."
And over the left side.
Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said,
Bring it up.
"Take
3
heart,
big
daughter.
rolls. Here we go.
Your
First one.
faith has made you well."
To the back. And
And instantly
How we
the
doing
woman
back
was
there?
made well.
and
And when Jesus came to the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making a commotion, he said,
and
"Go away, for the girl is not dead, but
deep breath
sleeping."
all the way up.
And they laughed
Turn
at
that
him.
toe out. Exhale.
But when the crowd had been put outside,
Left hand.
he went in and
Reach
took
down
her
with
by the
left hand.
hand,
Open up that chest.
and the
Here's
girl
bonus.
arose.
A little bit
And the
more lap
report
right
of
there.
this
How we
went
doing back
through
there,
all
Dave?
that district.
Good. Reach up to the left.
And as Jesus passed on from there,
Deep breath.
two blind
Exhale
men
down.
followed
Turn
him,
that left foot
crying
down.
aloud, "Have mercy on us,
Here's the bonus.
Son of David." When he entered the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus
Exhale
said to
wide
them,
across the chest. Big, big
"Do you
stretch. Feel
believe that
chest
I am
open
able
up.
to do
Here we
this?"
go. We're doing that 2 more times. Up.
They said to him, "Yes,
Go
Lord."
back.
Then he touched their eyes,
Last
saying,
time. Up.
"According to your faith be it done to you."
Reach tall, tall, tall.
And their
Exhale
eyes were
all the way
open,
down to the floor.
and Jesus sternly
Legs are
warned them,
straight.
"See that no one
Cross the
knows
arms.
it."
Relax
But
the
they
head.
went away and spread his fame through all
Can you
that
bend the knees
district.
here a little bit?
As they were going away, behold, a demon-oppressed man who was mute was brought to him. And when the
Exhale
demon
over the
had been
right
cast
side.
out, the mute man spoke, and the crowds marveled, saying, "Never was anything like this seen in Israel."
Loosen up your legs a little bit.
But the
more.
Pharisees said, "He casts
Air
out
center.
demons by the prince of demons."
Exhale over to the other side.
And Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every
Exhale, bend the
affliction.
knee.
When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd.
Deep breath.
Then he said to his disciples,
Sigh.
"The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few.
Straight. Keep breathing.
Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his
Don't collapse
harvest."
on the thigh. Get the body. Oh, look at Paul. He's like a statue. Come
Chapter
on.
10.
Toes in the
And he called to him
Drive that
his
back
12
heel down,
disciples and
toes
gave
down,
them
toes up.
authority over
Bonus
unclean
stretch. Here you go
spirits
down.
to cast them out, and
Coming
to
up.
heal every disease and every affliction.
Going down.
The names of the 12 apostles are these. First,
Descent.
Simon, who is called Peter, and
Exhale.
Andrew, his brother,
Turn to the right.
James, the son of Zebedee,
Stretch.
and John,
You
his
don't feel
brother,
this. Just drive it
Philip
down.
and Bartholomew,
Remember, knee.
Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus,
Up with the toe.
Simon the zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him.
Nice. Down.
These 12 Jesus sent out,
We're doing
instructing
nice and
them,
linear, nice and straight. Toe up.
"Go nowhere among the Gentiles, and enter no town of the Samaritans. but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of
So
Israel,
back to center.
and proclaim as you go, saying,
Left hand on the
the
floor.
kingdom of heaven
Reach up
is at
forward.
hand.
Big waist.
Heal the sick, raise the dead,
I
cleanse
want that
lepers,
there.
cast out demons.
No.
You
Drop it
received
down.
without
Keep
pay,
breathing.
give without
Place.
pay.
The left.
Acquire no gold or silver or copper for your belts,
Reaching up tall.
no bag for your journey, or 2 tunics, or sandals, or a staff, for the laborer deserves his food. And whatever town or village you enter, find out who is worthy of it, and stay there until you depart. As you enter the house, greet it,
Stand tall in those hands.
and if the house is worthy, let your peace come upon
Go
you.
to plank.
But if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you.
Drive the hands
And if anyone will
away
not
from the
receive you
floor.
or listen to your
Straighten
words,
out as much as you can.
shake
Drive
off the dust
your
from your
buttocks
feet when
nice
you
and
leave
high.
that house
Lock
or
those
town.
legs. Drive the heels.
Truly I say to you, it will be more bearable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town.
Rise.
Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves.
Downward dog.
So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves.
Oh, get the
Beware of
calves
men,
now.
for they will deliver you over to courts and flog you in their synagogues. And you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles.
Let's raise that right leg nice and high.
When they deliver you over, do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say.
Knee.
For what you are to say will be given to you in that hour.
Yeah, you're looking
For it
good
is not
there,
you
Paul.
who
Straighten that
speak,
back leg.
but
Look
the
at that knee.
Spirit of your Father speaking through you.
Back to plank.
Brother will deliver brother over to death, and the father his child. And children will rise against parents and have them put to death.
Back to plank.
And you will be hated by all for my name's sake.
Drive the heels.
But the one who endures to the end will be saved.
Left leg up, 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 up.
When they
toes.
persecute you in one town, flee to the next. For truly I say to you, you will not have gone through all the towns of Israel
Knee.
before the Son of Man comes.
Back leg straight.
A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master.
Back to plank.
It is enough for the disciple to be like his teacher, and the servant like his master.
Nice and tall here.
If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul,
Down dog.
how much more will they malign those of his
Oh,
household?
yeah. Feet together.
So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered that will not be revealed, or hidden
From here.
that will not be
Knees
known.
down. Back to crescent.
What I tell you in the dark,
Big reach.
say in the light. And what you hear whispered,
Perfect.
proclaim on the
Legs
housetops.
straight. Perfect.
And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul.
Same
Rather
thing over
fear
here.
him who can destroy both soul and body in
Okay,
hell.
stay. Just get in. Let's go.
Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. But even the hairs of your head are all numbered.
Back to plank.
Fear not, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows.
Feet
So
together.
everyone who acknowledges me before men, I also will acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven.
You got it. You can feel
Do
that
not think
body.
that I have come to bring
Just
peace
relax,
to the
nice and
earth.
straight. Hands together,
I
turn
have
out.
not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be those of his own household.
Down dog, last
Whoever
sequence, right
loves
side.
father
Here
or
you go.
mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me.
Drop.
And whoever does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me.
Shake
Whoever
it.
finds his life
Down. Can
will
you do
lose
it?
it,
Turn
and
those
whoever
palms down.
loses his life for my sake will find it.
Back.
Whoever receives you receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. The one who receives a prophet because he is a prophet will receive a prophet's reward.
Down dog. Take your
And
time,
the one who
buddy.
receives a righteous
You got a pause
person
button. Use it if you
because
need
he
it.
is a righteous
Feet
person
together. Left
will
leg
receive
up.
a righteous person's reward.
Last one. Up on the toes.
And whoever gives one of these little ones even a cup of cold water because he is a disciple,
Crescent.
truly I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward.
Straight as an arrow. Perfect. Good. Nice straight leg.
Chapter 11.
Wow.
When Jesus had finished instructing his 12 disciples, he went on from there to teach and preach in their
Hit
cities.
your last push up.
Now when John heard in prison about the deeds of the Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him,
Hit your last.
Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?
Walk the feet.
And Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see.
Take your time.
The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk.
Lead pipes.
Lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear.
Nice and
And
slow.
the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them.
You got knees up first.
And blessed is the one who is not
Oh,
offended
yoga
by
done.
it."
I want to get busy.
As they went away,
You
Jesus
guys
began
ready?
to speak
Right
to the
leg first.
crowds concerning
Arms in the
John.
air.
"What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind?
1, 2.
What then did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing?
Listen to it.
Behold, those who wear soft clothing are in
Stitch or
king's
something.
houses.
Listen to that.
What then did you go out to see? A prophet?
Feel strong.
Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet.
Hands up.
This is he of whom it is
We're
written,
checking form back
Behold,
here.
I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way before you.
5 seconds to the hour.
Truly I say to you, among those born of women, there has arisen no one greater than John the Baptist. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he.
You can't just turn it up.
From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and the violent take it by force.
Stomach.
For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who is to come. He who has ears to hear, let him hear.
We're going cross knees in 3.
But to what shall I
2,
compare this
and
generation?
Cross.
It is like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling to their playmates.
Alternative.
We played the flute for you, and you did
Turn
not
the
dance.
waist.
We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn.
Use your opposing hand.
For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, he has a demon.
This is almost
The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, look at him, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.
Crossover more.
Yet
Yeah,
wisdom
more
is justified by her deeds.
Good. Good.
Then he began to denounce the cities where most of his mighty works had been done, because they did not repent. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, it will be more bearable on the day of judgment for Tyre and Sidon than for you. And you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? You will be brought down to Hades. For if the mighty works done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I tell you that it will be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom than for you. At that time Jesus declared, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and understanding, and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father. And no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Chapter 12. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath. He said to them, Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, and those who were with him? How he entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which it was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the law how on the Sabbath the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are guiltless? I tell you, something greater than the temple is here. And if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. He went on from there and entered their synagogue. And a man was there with a withered hand. And they asked him, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? So that they might accuse him. He said to them, Which one of you who has a sheep, if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not take hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value is a man than a sheep? So it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Then he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And the man stretched it out, and it was restored, healthy like the other. But the Pharisees went out and conspired against him how to destroy him. Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from them, and many followed him, and he healed them all, and ordered them not to make him known. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. Behold my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved with whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel or cry aloud, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will hope. Then a demon-oppressed man who was blind and mute was brought to him, and he healed him so that the man spoke and saw. And all the people were amazed and said, "Can this be the son of David?" But when the Pharisees heard, they said, "It is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this man casts out demons." Knowing their thoughts, he said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. And if Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? And if I cast out demons by Beelzebul, by whom do your sons cast them out? Therefore they will be your judges. But if it is by the Spirit of God that I cast out demons, then the kingdom of God has come upon him. For how can someone enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods, unless he first binds the strong man? Then indeed he may plunder his house. Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters. Therefore I tell you, every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven people, but the blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven. And whoever speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but whoever speaks against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in this age or in the age to come. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For the tree is known by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered him, saying, "Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you." But he answered them, "An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The man of Nineveh will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and behold, something greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, something greater than Solomon is here. When the unclean spirit has gone out of a person, it passes through waterless places, seeking rest, but finds none. Then it says, I will return to my house from which I came. And when it comes, it finds the house empty, swept, put in order. Then it goes and brings with it 7 other spirits, more evil than itself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that person is worse than the first. So also will it be with this evil generation. While he was still speaking to the people, behold, his mother and his brothers stood outside, asking to speak to him. But he replied to the man who told him, Who is my mother, and who are my brothers? And stretching out his hand toward his disciples, he said, Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother.
You're going to need it. Get your water. Get your towel. Towel off.
Chapter
Don't sit
13.
down. There's no sitting down.
That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. And great crowds gathered about him,
Just keep moving.
so that he got into a boat and sat down.
Some water now.
And the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying,
Man, that's good.
a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed,
5
some
seconds.
seeds fell along the
Front
path,
leg.
and the birds came and devoured them. Other
Front left.
seeds fell on rocky ground
Right
where they did not have much soil,
Hands are up.
and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil.
Go.
But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away.
Kick. Set it. I want
Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30.
Good.
He who has
Keep the
ears,
slower benefits, of course,
let him
again.
hear.
You can keep going.
Then the disciples came and said to
A
him,
little bit lower.
why do you speak to them in parables?
Switch sides.
And he answered them,
2.
to you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. For to the one who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away.
Level. 1, 2.
This is why I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. Indeed, in their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled that says,
Quad. Flicking the leg.
you will indeed hear, but never understand,
Knee thrust.
and you will indeed see, but never
Right.
perceive.
Left leg forward, right leg back.
For this people's heart has grown dull, and with their ears they can barely hear, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and turn, and I would heal them.
Bring it up.
But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear.
Nice one.
For truly I say to you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it.
Okay, 4.
Hear then the parable of the sower.
2. Switching sides. Right
When
leg
anyone
forward,
hears
left
the
leg
word
back,
of the
hands
kingdom
up,
and does not
and
understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what has been sown in his heart.
boom. See my foot right here?
This is what was sown along the
My
path.
toes pointing on the
As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures for a while. And when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word,
Very muscular. My elbows
immediately
lay
he
out.
falls away.
Boom.
As for what was sown among thorns,
Side kicks.
this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke
All
the
the way
word,
to see.
and it
Keep
proves
toeing the line. You gotta
unfruitful.
feel off the floor. Get your
As
hands
for
up.
what was sown
kick
on
the side.
good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He
Don't worry about
indeed
kicking the
bears
ceiling.
fruit and
You don't have to
yields
go
in
high.
one case 100-fold, in another 60, and in another 30.
Time. Slower is
He
better
put
than
another
faster.
parable
Burning out.
before them, saying,
You want to go real fast, burn
the
out.
kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sows good seed in his
Listen to your
field.
body.
But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared
Other
also.
side. Weights on the
And
right.
the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds?
Good.
He said to them, an enemy has done this. So the servant said to him, then do you want us to go and gather them?
Do a sweat check.
And he said,
Let me see.
no, lest in gathering the weeds you should root up the wheat along with them.
More sweating.
Let both grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, gather the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned,
We're going back to front kicks.
but
Here we
gather
go.
the wheat into
Left
my
leg
barn.
here, right leg in the back, hands are up.
He put another parable before them, saying,
Go.
the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his
Keep
field.
in mind, because my elbows flare
It
a
is
lot
the
too.
smallest of all
Keep those
seeds,
elbows in.
but when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants, and
Nice and
becomes
slow
a
pace.
tree, so that the
Just remember,
birds of the
1, 2.
air come and make
Starting
nests
out
in its
with learning
branches.
here. Key is
He
key.
told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like
Just 'cause you're going
leaven
slow
that
doesn't
a
mean
woman
you're not
took
going
and
to
hid in
help.
3 measures of flour,
Good.
till it was all leavened.
Going to front left kick now. Ready, set.
All of these things
Right leg
Jesus
forward, left
said
leg
to the
back,
crowd
hands are
in
up.
parables. Indeed, he said nothing to them without a parable. This was to
Introducing your
fulfill
body
what was
to these
spoken by the
routines.
prophet.
There's no reason to bust.
I will open my mouth
Kill
in
yourself.
parables.
Strain something.
I will utter what has been hidden since the
Good form,
foundation of
good
the world.
posture, good breathing, taking the supplements.
Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples came to him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field."
Keep taking the supplements.
He answered,
Bring 'em
"The
up.
one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one,
You ready?
and the enemy who sowed them is the devil.
Come up.
The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels.
Also,
Just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who, on finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was thrown into the sea and gathered fish of every kind. When it was full, men drew it ashore and sat down and sorted the good into containers, but threw away the bad. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come out and separate the evil from the righteous, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all these things? They said to him, "Yes." And he said to them, "Therefore every scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house, who brings out of his treasure what is new and what is old." And when Jesus had finished these parables, he went away from them, and coming to his hometown, he taught them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, "Where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things?" And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and in his own household." And he did not do many mighty works there because of their unbelief.
Take your time. Nice and slow. Don't
Chapter
hyperextend those
14.
elbows. Drive that
At
hip.
that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard about the fame of Jesus, and he said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead. That is why these miraculous powers are at work in him."
Drive it.
For Herod had seized John and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have him."
Hands are up.
And though he wanted to put him to death, he feared the people because they held him to be a prophet.
Drive that
But
hip.
when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask.
Find your own.
Prompted by her mother, she said,
Nice.
"Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter."
We're eating.
And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he commanded it to be given.
Uppercut.
He sent and had John beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother.
Uppercut. Make that T.
And his disciples came and took the body and buried it, and they went and told Jesus. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself.
Get in the habit
But when the
of using your
crowds
body.
heard it,
Just
they
throw your
followed
arms.
him on foot
It's
from
none
the
of this.
towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick.
Oh,
Now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves."
use your body. Don't
But
forget to
Jesus
breathe.
said,
Knees
"They
are
need
something.
not go away. You give them something to eat." They said to him, "We have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish."
Quiet and obedient.
And he
Now,
said,
about these kids.
"Bring them here to me."
Boom. Bang.
Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the ground, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of the broken pieces left over. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them.
Hang in, everybody, we're almost done.
And in the 4th watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God."
You're just throwing your arms around.
And when they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent around to all that region, and brought to him all who were sick, and implored him that they might only touch the fringe of his garment. And as many as touched it were made well.
I'm also looking shoulders, back, shaping the arms.
Chapter 15.
We're going to switch it. 3.
Then Pharisees and scribes came to Jesus from Jerusalem and said,
Forward, left leg back.
"Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat." He answered them,
Hope nobody's been holding
"And
their
why
breath
do
the
you
whole
break
time.
the commandment of God for the sake of your tradition? For God commanded, 'Honor your father and your mother,' and 'Whoever reviles father or mother must surely die.' But you say, 'If anyone tells his father or his mother, what you would have gained from me is given to God, he need not honor his father.' So for the sake of your tradition, you have made void the word of God. You hypocrites!
Doing good.
Well did Isaiah prophesy of you when he said, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men.'"
Look at the abs. Come on, shoulders.
And he called the people to him and said to them, "Hear and understand. It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a person."
Give me some skin, everybody.
Then the disciples came and said to him,
Shake it
"Do
out.
you know that the
We got 2 minute
Pharisees
cool
were
down.
offended when they heard this saying?"
Draw out the sweat.
He answered,
We got abs coming up next.
"Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be rooted up. Let them alone. They are blind guides. And if the blind lead the blind,
Kick those legs out.
both will fall into a pit."
Shake out the
But
arms.
Peter said to him,
Punch it, man.
"Explain the parable to us."
Look at the side.
And he said, "Are you also still without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and is expelled? But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person.
The key here is to bring it
For
down
out of the
slow.
heart come evil
Last thing you
thoughts,
wanna do is sit down,
murder,
lay down,
adultery,
go grab a cheese
sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander.
Good, you got a minute left to cool
These
down.
are what defile a person.
That sound says.
But to eat with unwashed hands
Shake out the arms.
does not
How you guys
defile
doing back
anyone."
there? Good. If you want to do a little kind
And
of a
Jesus
rhyme,
went away
please.
from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and
Do
Sidon.
something, act a little bit.
And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying,
Follows
"Have
exactly.
mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David.
Well, of course now.
My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon."
Exhale it out.
But he did not answer her a word.
How'd that feel?
And his disciples came and begged him, saying,
Paul?
"Send her away, for she is crying out after us."
Whippersnappers, I gotta say.
He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel."
It's coming down.
But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And he
We're gonna
answered,
stretch the shoulders.
It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. She said, Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire. And her daughter was healed instantly. Jesus went on from there and walked beside the Sea of Galilee, and he went up on the mountain and sat down there. And great crowds came to him, bringing with them the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others. And they put them at his feet, and he healed them. So that the crowd wondered when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled healthy, the lame walking, and the blind seeing. And they glorified the God of Israel. Then Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion on the crowd because they have been with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. And I am unwilling to send them away hungry, lest they faint on the way. And the disciples said to him, Where are we to get enough bread in such a desolate place to feed so great a crowd? And Jesus said to them, How many loaves do you have? They said, 7, and a few small fish. And directing the crowd to sit down on the ground, he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and having given thanks, he broke them and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowd. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 7 baskets full of the broken pieces left over. Those who ate were 4,000 men, besides women and children. And after sending away the crowds, he got into the boat and went to the region of Magadan.
Other side. Here we go.
Chapter 16. And the Pharisees and Sadducees came, and to test him, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. He answered them, When it is evening, you say, It will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be stormy today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. So he left them and departed. When the disciples reached the other side, they had forgotten to bring any bread. Jesus said to them, Watch and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And they began discussing it among themselves, saying, We brought no bread. But Jesus, aware of this, said, Oh, you of little faith, why are you discussing among yourselves the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive? Do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000, and how many baskets you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000, and how many baskets you gathered? How is it that you fail to understand that I did not speak about bread? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Then they understood that he did not tell them to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, Who do people say that the Son of Man is? And they said, Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, But who do you say that I am? Simon Peter replied, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, Far be it from you, Lord. This shall never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you're not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. Then Jesus told his disciples,
Now these guys have their heads.
"If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay each person according to what he has done. Truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom."
Elbows are wide, chin up your chest, open up the knees. You're gonna rock your feet.
Chapter 17.
Ready, go.
And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise and have no fear." And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." And the disciples asked him, "Then why do the scribes say that first Elijah must come?" He answered, "Elijah does come, and he will restore all things. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they pleased. So also the Son of Man will certainly suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them of John the Baptist. And when they came to the crowd, a man came up to him, and kneeling before him said, "Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is an epileptic, and he suffers terribly. For often he falls into the fire and often into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, and they could not heal him." And Jesus answered, "O faithless and twisted generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him here to me." And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the boy was healed instantly. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why could we not cast it out?" He said to them, "Because of your little faith."